The bell above the glass door chimed softly as she stepped inside, but no one looked up. It was a high-end store on a busy street. Polished marble floors, golden lighting, shelves lined with luxury items that whispered wealth without saying a word. Sales associates moved gracefully between customers dressed in tailored coats and designer heels, offering smiles, attention, and service that felt almost royal, but not to her. She stood just inside the entrance for a moment, clutching the strap of her worn handbag. Her shoes were simple, her coat faded at the edges, and her hair pulled back in a way that spoke more of practicality than style. She looked around, her eyes carrying a quiet mixture of curiosity and hesitation. "Excuse me," she said gently to a passing associate. The woman barely slowed. "Someone will be with you," she replied quickly, though her tone suggested otherwise. No one came. Minutes passed. Customers who entered after her were greeted warmly, guided through displays, offered refreshments. Laughter echoed lightly in the store. But she remained invisible, like a shadow that didn't quite belong. Still, she didn't leave. Instead, she walked slowly toward a display of winter coats. Her fingers brushed lightly against the fabric, careful, almost reverent. She checked the price tag, paused, then moved on. Not in disappointment, but in thought. From across the room, two employees exchanged glances. "Does she even know where she is?" one whispered. "Probably just browsing. People like that never buy anything," the other muttered, straightening a rack that didn't need straightening. She heard them. Her steps slowed for just a moment, but she kept moving. At the far end of the store, near a quieter corner, a young sales assistant named Daniel noticed her. He was new, still learning the rhythms of the place, still unsure where he fit among the polished confidence of his coworkers. But something about her quiet patience, the way she looked at things with intention, caught his attention. He approached her with a small, genuine smile. "Hi," he said. "Is there anything I can help you find?" She looked at him, slightly surprised, then smiled back. Soft, grateful. "Yes," she said. "I'm looking for warm coats, good quality ones." "Of course," Daniel replied. "For yourself?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not just for me." He didn't question it. Instead, he guided her through the collection, explaining materials, durability, warmth. He didn't rush. He didn't assume. He simply treated her like she mattered, and she noticed. As they moved from one section to another, she began asking more questions about sizes, about availability, about bulk purchases. Daniel's brows lifted slightly, but he remained attentive. "How many are you thinking?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her eyes steady now. "Everything," she said. He blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I'd like to buy all the winter coats you have in stock," she repeated calmly. For a moment, the noise of the store seemed to fade. Daniel wasn't sure he had heard correctly. "All of them?" "Yes." Quiet certainty. Word spread quickly. The same associates who had ignored her earlier now turned their attention toward her. Managers stepped in, suddenly eager, their voices polished and bright. "Ma'am, we'd be happy to assist you," one said, stepping between her and Daniel, but she gently shook her head. "He's helping me," she said, nodding toward Daniel. The manager forced a smile and stepped back. Within minutes, the store transformed. Boxes were brought out, inventory checked, calculations made. The total climbed higher and higher, tens of thousands of dollars. Yet she didn't flinch. As the final number was presented, the manager cleared his throat. "The total comes to," he paused, almost expecting hesitation, $48,750. The store held its breath. She reached into her worn handbag and pulled out a simple envelope. From it, she took out a card and handed it over. "Will this be all right?" she asked. The manager took it, skepticism flickering briefly in his eyes, but it vanished as soon as the transaction went through. Approved, just like that. Silence fell over the store. The same people who had dismissed her now stood frozen, their expressions shifting from doubt to disbelief, and then to something heavier, regret. But she wasn't looking at them. She turned to Daniel. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing me." He swallowed, unsure what to say. "Of course, I just did my job." She shook her head gently. "No," she said, "you did more than that." Outside, a truck was being arranged for delivery. The coats were carefully packed, labeled, and loaded. But as everything was being finalized, Daniel couldn't help but ask, "If you don't mind me asking, what are all these for?" She looked out through the glass window, watching the city move, people hurrying, cars passing, the world continuing as it always did. "For people who need them," she said simply. He waited, sensing there was more. "There's a shelter a few blocks from here," she continued. "It's always full in the winter. Families, children, people who don't have enough to stay warm." Her voice softened, carrying something deeper now. "I used to be one of them." Daniel's chest tightened. "I remember what it felt like," she said. "Standing in the cold, hoping someone would notice, hoping someone would care enough to help." She smiled faintly. "Today, I can be that someone." The weight of her words settled into the room like a quiet storm. The employees who had ignored her earlier now avoided her gaze. Their polished confidence had faded, replaced by something far more human, shame, but she didn't call them out. She didn't need to. As the last box was loaded, she turned back to Daniel. "Kindness doesn't cost anything," she said, "but it can change everything." He nodded, his eyes slightly glassy now. "I'll remember that," he said. She smiled. "I hope they will too." With that, she stepped out of the store, the same quiet presence she had been when she walked in, but now the world seemed to move differently around her. Inside, no one spoke for a long moment. Finally, one of the associates whispered, "We didn't even say hello." The manager sighed, looking at the empty doorway. "We saw her, but we didn't see her." Daniel stood there, watching the street outside, where the truck carrying the coats disappeared into the distance. He knew something had changed, not just for the people who would receive those coats, but for everyone in that store. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons don't come from words. They come from moments, from choices, from the quiet strength of someone who has every reason to be bitter, but chooses kindness instead. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline and the temperature began to fall, a group of volunteers at the shelter opened the truck. Box after box of brand new coats, warm, thick, beautiful, enough for everyone. Children laughed as they tried them on, their cheeks flushed with excitement. Parents held the coats close, relief washing over their faces. For the first time in a long time, the cold didn't feel so overwhelming. And no one there knew her name. But they felt her kindness. And that was enough. Because true generosity isn't about recognition. It's about impact. And sometimes the people the world overlooks are the ones who change it the most. So the next time someone walks into your life, quiet, unnoticed, different, remember this. You never know who they are. You never know what they've been through. And you never know the power they hold, not in wealth, but in heart. Because kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who chooses to give it. And in a world that often looks the other way, choosing to care might just be the most powerful thing of all.